And we are back with part two with where he's over that side. Yeah, that's right. With Mr. Eric Tscherne. Eric, welcome back to part two of our talk of helping new players. We talked sponsorship last week. This week we'll get into some more fun stuff.
Awesome.
So yeah, we talked a little bit off air here. The cornhole etiquette part of the game is just we've had so many new players come into the game, coming out of COVID that have been backyard players, and they're used to all the way they play in the backyard. But then there becomes that little bit of etiquette once we come inside playing in the tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, etiquette is something that I've been passionate about as I've grown with the sport. It's a topic of mine that I have some feelings about and some thoughts about, having played 4 or 5 years now, organized cornhole. I think it boils down simply to the concept of carry yourself at the tournament, around the tournament, and on the boards the way you would want your opponent to carry themselves as it relates to you. And if you can boil it down that simply, I think you'll find that most prickly positions or most situations in a game, if you think of that first, you will find a solution that is mutually acceptable for both.
Well, because I've really started to see a lot more etiquette stuff. The cornhole groups on Facebook, they go in their runs. There's a whole bunch of bag posts. All of a sudden, it's just everyone with not liking people selling bags. And then you get the run of etiquette posts. I've seen a little bit more run of the etiquette posts here lately. Of just I've seen a couple where a couple leagues were saying, maybe we might go to a dry league, or if you're going to come to a league and you want to have those few beers, have those 1 or 2. Don't make it like a 10 or 20.
Yeah, I mean, we are playing a sport that has some unique qualities to it that don't exist in other sports. Particularly the drinking, but you also got people who are vaping. Depending on where in the world you live, certain herbal enhancers are favored. You have people trying lots of different things to find that edge, to calm those nerves, or to do something to get them to where they need to be. And then you're mixing that with competition. So one thing that cornhole, I think, universally brings out, particularly at the higher edges of any division, are people with a competitive drive. And those are, oftentimes guys who played high school sports, played competitive softball or bowlers. And with that comes a desire to win. And when you mix that with people who are maybe a little tipsy, people who are maybe not there for that reason, maybe they're, especially on a Monday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night league, you got people who are there to hang out with their buddies, throw some bags, have some fun, right? Maybe they'll get a good partner and win. Otherwise, they're cool donating their $15 or $20 and $10, whatever it is, and drinking 3 or 4 beers and going home. But when they're 3 or 4 beers in and they're playing against somebody who's there to play, that's where rules of etiquette and understanding between the players becomes even more important, because then you don't get the irritation stuff that causes some conflict.
Well, I think from what I've seen is usually after those 4 or 5, 6 beers, the etiquette is the first thing to go.
Yes,
it's that's the one that it becomes it's more stuff, and I've like I think I put it out, and you also put out, just people for comments or questions people have for the etiquette stuff, and we can get into that a bit first here, because we got a bunch of new players up here, and one was James Forbes here had asked, and this is always the big thing, because I get into it with Jamie Cowan at the shop all the time. That bag's moving. He still thinks every bag's moving for like 5 minutes. He thinks he can see like each little piece of resin still moving somehow. But it's how fast do you grab the bags off the boards after they've been thrown?
I mean, technically, I think it's somewhere between 3 and 5 seconds for a bag to come to rest. One of the things I think players need to understand, because this relates to how much time it takes between bags, time is a lot longer than they think. We jokingly yesterday, because we talked about time, we from bag 1 coming to rest, after the player threw bag 1, we hit a stop timer on our phone. 20 full seconds went by and we stopped it. 5 more bags were thrown. 6 of the 8 bags coming from one direction had been thrown in 20, 22 seconds or something like that. What players don't realize is that, you see it in the pro division a lot where players step in and out of the box and they have a routine that they go through. 20 seconds is an eternity. Mm-hmm. And that's how much time between bags a player has to deliver their bag. So, Doug, if you throw, I have 20 seconds to throw. I can have a sip of beer. I can probably do a TikTok dance and then throw my bag all in 20 seconds. It is a long time. It is there for a variety of reasons. It's perfectly within a player's ability to play within that. But people get upset. People grab bags really, really quickly. I saw a pro last year run. I was watching my partner throw. I won't name the pro because it's not worth that kind of stuff. But I literally saw a pro, I won't say sprint, but move exceptionally quickly and break from a walk into a run in order to pick bags they thought might drop. It is at least 3 seconds that those bags should rest. And that's 3 Mississippi or Mississauga from where you guys are at. That is a lot longer than you think it is. And it's 3 seconds from when that bag stops moving. So it's not, if that bag is clearly moving and it's been 3 seconds, you don't get to pull it, right? You also don't get to shoot while it's moving. Those things are harder to see when you don't have a partner. To be very honest, I had a player ask me on Saturday in our regional. I was playing against his son, and he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you when the game's over about a situation I saw." And his whole conversation was, well, you threw and the bag that you pushed was actually touching another bag in the hole. What do you do in that situation? We started talking about what happens with a sweep. And I talked to him. I said, well, this is a regional, and I could who do I have sweep it becomes an etiquette thing. But time, as we were just discussing, specifically time, it should be at least 3 seconds, which takes you at least 3 seconds to walk from board to board. If you're walking, this isn't, again, a race. If that bag falls while you're putting in the score, I count it. That's, unless somebody jumped, kicked, nudged the board, it was probably moving. But if, and then to your question, if I can't tell the bag is moving from my side and I throw, then I throw. But if that bag is clearly sliding down and it's doubles and somebody's like, it's moving, then I wait to throw until it has fallen, because that's the rule, right? That bag is still moving. I think there was an awesome sequence on the USA Cornhole's All Forces Challenge that happened this year, Memorial Day weekend, where one of the new Ultra Butters was on its fast side, and it was taking a good 15 to 20 seconds to work its way off the front of the board, which it did do, because it was so slick on its slick side. But you didn't see the other guy shooting while it was sliding because it was clearly still moving. It isn't always clear that it's moving, and that's also fair. But again, would you want your opponent to quick snatch bags on you? Right? Ask yourself, right? If you're putting if you're cool with that, then you better be cool with it when it happens to you.
Mm-hmm. And with that bag moving, I think Lori Duell had one last year as well too. I forget if it was in Albany, or I forget which one it was at, but just I think that bag.
It was probably Albany because she kicked butt up there.
Yeah, because it was like, I think it was over a minute that bag was like it moved a bit. It stopped. It thought about what it wanted to do. Started moving again after like a second, and then and they're just waiting for it just to fall off. And I was watching online, and you see everyone saying, "Just pick up the bag, give her the point." And it's like, well, you never know what that's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't know. You shouldn't pick her bag, give her the. This is why you play the game, right? You play the game, and cornhole is a game where anyone can play, anyone can win. That is a tough thing when you're a top-end player, because you could run into some guy you've never met before who's having a heater. He's just on one, and you've got no answer. And you're the top dude in the world, possibly, and you're losing a game to somebody you don't think you should ever lose to. That's how cornhole works. So you don't know if that bag is going to fall, if it's going to hang up, if one thread's going to hang on one splinter. You don't know what it is that's going to make that bag either not go in the hole or hang on the edge or whatever it is. And that's why you play the game and you play it out. And that's why you have a respect for the game and you have a respect for your opponent, the same way you would respect yourself. And I think we need to get to that in our sport, a little bit more understanding of that. And I think the sport will continue to grow with that. If we don't adopt that respect for the game and respect for our opponents, it's going to be hard for us to get where we want to go. And it's going to be hard for us to get the respect from, say, the corporate world in terms of sponsorship and financials.
Mm.
You don't stuff either on pros. Like you said, they watch that bag move for Lori. They watch that bag move in that all forces challenge. Those situations, I mean, for most players, if you're watching a pro tournament, you will see what the etiquette should look like, because those players, they are in the stands watching their friends play, or they are on the court playing. They handle themselves largely the way they would expect and want their opponent to do to them. Even the trash talking guys, you know, there are pros who trash talk. They don't talk while the guy is shooting. They don't, right? Even some of the biggest names in the sports who love to say a couple of things and who love to sort of poke the bear a little bit, they respect the game too much to do it while the other guy is shooting. They may do it while they're shooting. They might be like, yep, that's in, right? Yep. You'll hear guys do that. Ain't doing it while the other guy's shooting, you know? There's too much respect for the game and where they are to just be a complete jerk.
Well, and that leads right into the next question we had from Keaton, Kerry McLeod, which I got to meet Keaton on the weekend here, and his question was talking, moving while your opponent is throwing. So it's either, you know, that could either be like your opponent talking or even someone from the crowd just kind of doing that. And I know we talked about this off here as well too, just that the Bronx cheer out of the crowd or whatever, but just, you know, or the bending down to pick up your next bag while your opponent's throwing. Just the kind of etiquette around that.
So there's a lot of etiquette in terms of how you carry yourself when you're in a game. Whether it's singles or doubles, you can look at a lot of different situations there. How you handle yourself in the box, right? If you're a dancer, if you move, if you're a bag flipper, if you're fidgety, right? I think to some degree, start asking yourself, especially if you're trying to play competitive cornhole, you're moving out of the intermediate division, you're moving up to competitive. Again, how would you want people to act in the box next to you? Assume the worst about what's going on in the box that you might be doing. Assume it's just the worst behavior in the world and look at yourself and go, how do I manage that? I flip bags. Most people flip bags. It's not that big of a deal. If I'm inside arm flipping my bag, I'm definitely not going to be doing it up next to the board and crowding that space. I've never seen a pro crowd the space. Under the ACL rules, I have the right to throw my bag in any motion I deem necessary. So that could mean a complete weird sidearm throw. If I contact you while you're standing up at the line, you don't have any right to stand up at the line while you're not shooting, right? And you're not shooting doesn't start with bag 1 and end with bag 4. It's bag, 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 bag. I have a right to be able to try to throw a bag that is necessary. And if I'm inside arm, I'm going to be, if I'm flipping bags, I'm going to step off the line. I'm going to step back. So again, I'm not doing it. If I've taken a step or two back off the line, I'm still in the box. I'm kind of probably out of your peripheral vision. You know, I respect you to have your time to make your throw. I'm still going to flip my bag because it's what I do to deal with my nerves. But I'm doing it out of your sight. So again, that's an etiquette thing, right? That's simply me doing it out of your line of view. You look at other sports like, say, golf. You don't walk through someone's line. You don't stand on the other side of the hole while they're putting, right? And you stand behind them. Why do you stand behind them? Because they know they can't see you back there, right? So whatever you're doing back there is cool. You don't talk while the other guy's putting or hitting or driving, right? But if you're 50 yards across the fairway, they can't hear you talking to your caddy, so it's not a big deal. It's about that awareness. So, talking about, bag flipping, moving, and that kind of thing. Again, you probably have a good understanding of what you're doing as a player. I would suggest you assume the other guy, or whatever you would want the other guy to be doing, apply that to yourself. You mentioned bag picking up. There are a lot of players who like to put their bags on the board, either the front corner, the back corner, wherever it is they like to put their bags down. They may only hold one bag at a time. Completely within their rights to do it. Awesome. But you're introducing a new set of motions between bags. You throw your bag. You bend over and you're across the board and I contact you. That's an interference situation. You don't want to deal with that. It's not cool. You don't want to do it. You don't see pros do it. You don't see the top end guys do that stuff, right? There are pros who throw one bag at a time and they pick them up off the board. But again, they throw their bag, they step off the line, they let the other guy throw, then they pick up their bag, then they go through their motion. Most pros don't throw rhythmically. They don't throw bag, you throw bag, you throw bag, you throw bag. They don't do that, right? They don't chase the other guy. Most of them, their motion and their rhythm starts from their decision. Whenever they decide it's an airmail, it's a push, it's a cut, whatever that decision is, that's when they flip their last bag or two. That's when they're, that's when they step up to the line and their whole process begins, right? It isn't them standing in one spot, hucking bags quickly after another. That's why pro matches take so much longer and top end matches take so much longer than you see at a local blind draw. And I'm not advocating for people to take a ridiculous amount of time, but I am saying that there is more time there. There is the ability to be a nice guy. You wear a big, tall hat, right? I've seen some guys who like to come to tournaments in some unique attire. So you've got a big 10-gallon cowboy hat on and you're bending down and picking up bags. If you immediately bend down and pick up your bag, you have to realize that you're hanging over the board. And if you're hanging over and I'm throwing inside arm at that point, you're affecting me. And that's not cool. That's just not. And I've a lot of pros. I said, well, what's the penalty there? Ultimately, it gets down to probably a call for interference. It'd be like grabbing a bag out of the sky. It'd be like grabbing my arm. It'd be like touching the bags that are on the board. You don't want that penalty. I don't know that that penalty is explicitly written in the rules because it shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be doing that. So there isn't necessarily a penalty in there. As we develop this game, and I think I said it earlier, it's a gentleman's game, gentle ladies game. When you're playing, you shouldn't be doing things you wouldn't want others doing to you. So if you're going to be one of those guys who picks up bags between, I got no problem with it. I got no problem with your pace. Just remember, let your opponent, not even just me, let your opponent throw before you pick up your bag, right? Or if your opponent hasn't committed to walking up to the line, pick up your bag, right? Depending on where they're at in the box. You just have to be aware, right, on what's going on. It's not just about you. You are aware of the situation.
Well, it's the same as it's almost like every time up at the Octane Garage where we get into that whole etiquette talk because you talk about crowding the board and we talk about what if you were to throw like almost like a reverse frisbee kind of throw, and you're wanting to do that cut going right to left on the board that you're throwing at, and you kind of get that way overthrow to come as I knock stuff off all my stuff here. Yeah. But it's you that way, like I just interfere with myself there. It's you're throwing way over, and if that person's crowding the board, you're hitting that inside arm.
Well, let's just be honest. My wingspan is probably somewhere. This arm's probably somewhere between 2.5 and 3 feet. That is longer than the board, and if I'm inside arm, I can get across the board.
Yep.
Right. If I deem for some crazy reason that motion is going to get me the result that I want on the board, I'm entitled to making that style of a throw. And you're not entitled to stand there and block me. Right. Like I said, I've talked to so many pros about those kinds of situations and they're like, yeah, dude, just don't do it. right? Just don't do it. You know, you don't have any reason to stand there. And you see it a lot on one of the biggest places you see it is after fourth bag. So let's say your opponent has second bag and you're throwing bag one and they throw two, right? You've thrown your fourth bag. And I've seen guys get up on the front of the box and go out. I throw my fourth one. Stand. Maybe cross their arms in front of them. Try to put them straight down. Maybe make them. I've seen guys try to make themselves big.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I'm just asking you. What are you doing? What kind of advantage are you getting? You're doing nothing but showing everyone in the building your personal respect for the game and other people. Not cool. You know, let's just be honest. Not cool. Don't do it.
And even, you know, the crowding, we talk about the crowding at the throwing end. That crowding is also on the opposite end as well too. That the board you're throwing, if you're standing there right at that board that your opponent or even your partner is throwing at, you're crowding that board. You could be creating a shadow or just
again
something can happen
over the course of the day. You have to be respectful for what's going on. If you're playing inside, outside, you could be creating a shadow. So it's totally okay for somebody on the other end going, hey, can you move back a little bit or move to your left because you're putting a shadow on it? Okay, cool. Well, it should only take one, maybe two reminders that you're creating a shadow on there before you find a new place to stand between rounds. You have no reason to be standing in the box while a round is going on. I've never been to a tournament where there's not enough space where you have to stand next to the board and you're throwing into an alley of two dudes standing next to the board. There's no reason you shouldn't step back off the line, step behind the board and out a little bit, right? Like if you can. Now, if you're playing in a tight location, there may be some limitations there, but everyone's dealing with those limitations there. So the etiquette changes a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about some things that are happening on the other end of the board. Picking up bags was something that my friends brought up. And you mentioned it again. It happens on the other end of the board too. So let's say your opponent shanks one right, goes up the side and off to the right. I have a lot of players who are like, well, that's your bag. I'm going to hand it to you, right? You know, so I'm standing on the right of the board. They've gone off left, right? My player. So I've had a guy bend over, pick the bag up, and then start to hand it to me. Well, he's handing it to me either across the board or behind the board. First of all, there's no reason to touch any of the bags at all unless they're in front of the board and in some way contacting it or some way bothering. The only bags to move under the rules of the game are the bags that are in the front, right? So you have one that slides off, it's half on, half off, you remove it. You have one that somebody buries a foot in front of the board, right? You move it. And there's an etiquette to that. I mean, largely, I won't do anything major to draw too much attention, but you might see me go like this, or like, you know, you'll see my eyes go, right? If I've built a rapport, especially in doubles with my partner, I will be like, do you want me to move it? Right? Mm-hmm. It's very slight, you know, and because my old partner was a very quick thrower. That was his choice. He liked to throw fast, and I didn't want to upset my own partner. Mm-hmm. So I would be like, do you want me to move it? Want me? Right? And he would either stop and step out and go, yeah, move that one, right? Or he would want to continue to shoot. He liked to leave those bags there sometimes because it kind of was a reminder to his opponent that they threw a short one. And it was sometimes hard for them to find it and throw a 9 from throwing a short one. You know, you might get a 7 out of that guy real easy. In which case, if you throw a 12, that's a big number. You know, but he may leave it there while he throws, and then it's up to his own partner, my opponent's partner on the other side, to determine whether he wants to pick that bag up. But there's no reason to pick the bags up that are deep. There's no reason to pick the bags up that are left or right until the round is complete. It creates some weird oddities too. Like if you hand me a bag and I'm holding it in my left hand, right? Holding the bag in my left hand, and then I go to pick the bags out of the hole and that bag's still in my left hand. Now I might have forgotten which ones were in the hole and which ones weren't.
Yep.
You know, and it's an honest mistake at that point. Not necessarily like, if I have 3 or 4 beers, you know, I've got zero nerves at this point. I'm just hucking and not thinking. I forgot what was in and what was off. Like I've seen it happen. There's no reason to touch the bags. Even if they're at your feet, there's literally no reason to touch them. There's no reason to be dancing around. But again, there's that 20 seconds between throws. So if I like to be engaged in doubles. So if my opponent throws a bag in the hole, I might be like, yeah, good bag.
Yeah.
If you're throwing quick on the other side and you're upset that I'm doing that, number one, let me know. I'll stop. Like, I'm not doing it to affect you. I'm doing it to stay engaged with my partner, right? I like when my partner does things like that. I like when my partner does that. But again, I'm doing it not behind the board. I'm doing it from a foot or two behind it and off to the right. So again, it shouldn't be something where you're looking at it. And if I'm getting super crazy in that space, then it is a little bit on me, and let me know. I'll stop, you know. But, you know, I know some people get affected by those things, particularly when their mind starts to wander and they're losing. They get affected by those things by a little bit more. You know, the mental concentration of this game is 90% of it at a certain point. Yeah. The two guys are pretty evenly matched. They got the shots. If your mind starts to wander, if you get fatigued, if you get tired, your buzz isn't where it needs to be, if you start to sober up or you're getting a little too drunk, whatever it might be, that's when your mind starts to wander, and those little actions by your opponent can start to bother you even more as you're looking for an excuse to why you're playing not up to your usual standard.
Well, yeah, and even, you know, with those bags in front of the board, because as we all know, up here they're called CornDoug, so we know why that got that name. But it's, you know, there's sometimes I'll see some players that as soon as that bag hits the front of the board and is laying in front, even if the other person is ready to go, they'll jump out with a hand up saying, wait, that person, you know, don't just jump out there, see if they want those bags removed first.
It's not your job to remove that bag for your opponent who's throwing, right? Mm-hmm. The hand up, again, you know, you saw me making a very small motion.
Yep.
The hand up would be to your own player. So if Doug, you and I are playing against each other, and we're on the receiving end of the bags, and your partner throws and it's a shorty, and you go to put your hand up, I don't want you to do that. That's going to bother my partner, right? My partner may be choosing to throw while that's going, and he's within his right to do that. So you don't need to be making a motion to go grab that bag. Now, my partner has thrown, right? Let's say you didn't make that motion. My partner has completed his throw. He's in the hole. Hey. You might use that as an opportunity to settle your partner down.
Yep.
You could put your hand up and be like, hey, partner, hold up. Let me grab that one. Buy your partner an extra moment to shake that off. Get it out of their viewpoint so that they're not staring at that short one. And hopefully they reset and throw 3 down the middle. And maybe you're lucky and it's only a 1 point, round. Maybe your opponent, my partner, only throws a 10. Your partner's able to reset and throw a solid 9 and gets out of it with 1 instead of 3 against, and that could work out. It's totally up to you.
And then another thing that I've noticed here kind of recently as well too is around that action on the board. It's not just the people involved, but the other people that are surrounded with their other players that are just kind of walking behind boards, or just kids that are at the venue, either running through courts or just kind of that whole act, like just they're trying that whole etiquette of, be mindful of where you're at, or to help your kids. So you're at a venue, you got to be mindful of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is something that I think we all need to. Again, you should be mindful around the boards of the other games. So if you're behind a game, you could be behind another game. You need to be aware of where you're at. You go to a place like Rock Hill, it gets tight. The walkways get tight, and people are trying to stand behind the boards to watch games. It can get tight. You have to be aware of what's going on, not just on the court that you're playing in or the court that you're watching as a fan, but the court that's next to it, or behind it, right? Because if you start stepping back, you could clip a board that has a live game on it, right? You could trip over it, right? Something could happen, right? Depending on the layout of the venue. And we're all working with venues that might be a little tight in certain areas as we try to cram an extra court or 2 in. There's not always a ton of space. One of the things that you'll see And I thought it was really interesting. First time I went to Rock Hill, in the pro division and in the upper advanced division, as the tournaments were getting deeper and less courts were used, you would see them flip. Like, let's say you're playing a bracket final or a semifinal. It's a big game, and there's money on the line. There's big money on the line. It's not on court one. It's not on the broadcast court. So you don't have a lot of extra space around it. I have watched guys lift up the adjacent courts, lift up the boards, and put them up on their sides, creating additional space, just sort of creating a visual barrier for the fans to stay out and around. There's going to be a bunch of people. At some point in time, you see these big rings open, 4 and 5 people deep, to watch the best players in the world go at it with each other. They want some space. They want to have the space to work. And since it's largely, again, other players watching these games, the etiquette is not necessarily spoken, but it is experienced. And when you watch these guys play and they flip up the boards like that, you realize, like, this game means something. And you respect it. As a fan, you respect it. You cheer between shots, not during shots. But also, again, those players aren't rushing their shots, So they're, you hit a big airmail with bag 3, right? Your opponent may still have 2 bags left, at least has 1 bag left. Your opponent is probably
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can hear, your sound kind of went there.
Yeah, I had an incoming phone call for some reason. Are you still seeing me? Because I'm not seeing myself.
Yeah, no, we could see the whole time. It was just, you were just kind of, we had to read lips there.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, those in those situations, your opponent will, if they're not rushing, they're allowing for the time for the crowd to make that cheer. And then again, they've made the decision that they are now going to slide one in or throw a block or whatever. And that's when their rhythm starts. And you'll see the crowd, because the crowd, especially during COVID, the crowd was all pros watching pros play cornhole. And it was the pros and their guests, their wives, their girlfriends, their travel companions. That's who was in the crowd. So you watched the crowd change their behavior, because you want to be on that court one day and you want the crowd to act a certain way when you're on the court. So you're going to carry yourself as a fan the way you would hope fans would carry themselves during your game. And I think it starts there, right? Again, it always starts there. How would you want someone to act? And if you follow through on that, you're going to be pretty close to where you need to be. And you're not going to be terribly annoying to somebody else.
Well, that's the one thing I've noticed around up here. I was coming at, like, saying, everything's coming out of COVID, out of bringing the backyard inside as we get more people playing, is that I don't want to say it's more like a hockey atmosphere where you're still chirping the guys as they're about to do something, but it's just that hollering at players as they're making that throw. Like we talked before, like, the U.S. Open tennis or a golf thing, no one's really hollering at the players as they're playing. If they are, they're being escorted out. But it's that whole respect thing, I guess.
Yeah, again, it's a respect for the game, and you can go around and look at something. I think we use it like Wimbledon, for instance. The crowd acts differently at Wimbledon, and is sort of required to act, the etiquette there. What you wear, Wimbledon, for instance, the dress code is all white, right? And there's an expectation you dress a certain way. The dress code at the U.S. Open of tennis is completely wide open. You get Venus wearing a cat suit, which has never really been done before. Different tournaments have different feels and vibes to them, and you need to roll with them. I was playing in a charity tournament recently. A partner of mine, a friend of mine, asked me to cover for another guy. And as soon as I got there, there's a bunch of other friends I knew. It was a charity tournament, right? So a bunch of guys from town who were like, "Oh, you're a pro." So it got out around that I was a pro. By the time the championship rolled around, the 15, 20 people who were still there were cheering against me. Every pro. They were cheering for the other guy, not necessarily booing me or anything, but it was a different vibe. It was a charity tournament on the beach. yeah, they would have liked to have seen the underdogs win. They were clearly rooting for the underdogs. There were two people rooting for me and Art, and they were our wives. I appreciated it because I could hear every cheer from the two.
Yeah.
You know, that vibe, it's fun to play in that environment. You know, I'm okay with those things. But again, if you're watching a game and you're around a game, you should be acting the way you would want it to happen in your game. And if those things are going to bother you, then you shouldn't be doing them. You know, I do know some people who have the magical ability to be unself-aware. They're fine with, you know, cutting every line and just going through life like they're numero uno. Those are people that are harder to corral when it comes to things like etiquette, because they don't even realize they're breaking it because they don't give a crap. They don't give a crap about anything.
I think that's where the alcohol kind of comes back around full circle on that one.
It can, especially if you get it with that person, right? If that person just kind of goes through life like, you know, and that doesn't make them a bad person when I say they don't give a crap. They just kind of just keep moving forward, right? They don't let things bug them, right? Yeah. They're oblivious to those things going on around them. Those are the harder people to corral when it comes to these etiquette things. And then you have more sensitive people. That's why, I mean, ultimately, that's why like the rules of golf have an entire section dedicated to etiquette. I mean, you're not penalized for walking through someone's line. There's no 2-stroke penalty for stepping through their line on the putting green. There's no penalty for hitting out of turn, right? You know, the guy with the low score shoots first. There's no penalty for shooting first if you had the high score. There's no penalty, right? You're just a bad person, if I guess, at that point. You're just, you know, annoying. And I would argue that you don't want to be that person. You don't want that to be your reputation in the game. One thing that I think you have to remember is that if you're committed to coming out of the backyard and playing cornhole tournaments, you're committed to joining a cornhole community. You hear a lot of people call it the cornhole family. So you should also, you know, act like you'd want your family to treat you. Would you do that to your own friend, you know, your own family? Would you do that to your grandma? Would you do that to your mom? Would you do that to your uncle? Because you're going to be playing in these tournaments. And I've seen it happen a lot with younger kids. They come out, they're brash, they're young, they don't care. They just keep going at it. You know, and then after a year or more in the sport, they realize they're playing against the same people over and over and over again, right? The end of the tournament's the same people. Beginning of the tournament, same people, right? There is definitely new people moving through, especially when you're in the advanced division. It is the same handful of people that are playing together all the time. So if you get a reputation of being, you know, sort of a jerk on the boards, it's going to be hard to shed that reputation. And you don't want to be that person by any means. I don't think you want that to be your, you know, your reputation and your MO that precedes you wherever you go. Because you say play locally in your region for a couple of years and then you start to travel. Well, word already traveled about who you are. Everybody knows. Right? First time you drive 100 miles, like, oh, cool, we're finally seeing you. Right?
And then one of my last things I got as a question or a comment, just the be self-aware of what's going on with the tournament. Whether, you know, we've all got the apps, either be it Scoreholio, ACL app, where you can actually look at the bracket, see what games are coming up, see what games are up next, and be ready to play. Don't be the you know, the big time player that, you know, making everyone wait the 15 minutes before you play, because as we talked off air, sometimes the pros do that, but that's because they've just played for an hour. Chances are in a local tournament, you haven't played for an hour.
Yeah, and I think it's important, right? You're in a local blind draw, right? It's a Monday night. Nobody wants to be there till midnight. Everybody would love to get out of there at 10 for once instead of 11:45. You know, you got a game starting, you know, and you got a notification on your phone, whatever software it was that told you it's time to play. It's time to play. You know, get up to the board, play the game, you know, that kind of thing. If you've just come out of a game, right, then that's a tough spot too, right? Because let's say you just lost in the, you're in the winner's side, you lose the semifinal on the bracket on your side or whatever, right? So final four, you lose a game. You may be immediately called up to a board, right? And this is where the pros are taking a little bit more time that you're seeing. Pro might have just played a 40-round game, right? He's been standing for an hour and played a 40-round game back and forth. Mentally, he is exhausted. He is going to want to take a 5 or 10-minute break before he starts that game because he's in for another hour-long game. If you're playing a 10, 12-round game that's going to take 15 minutes, you can likely play, right? There's nothing physically stopping you from playing. If you've just played a 15-minute game and you're called up for another 15-minute game, you got to go to the bathroom, you can tell your opponents, I got to go to the bathroom real quick.
Yep.
I mean, I think there's some etiquette that goes on in there too. Like if you're getting up to the line, it's kind of like when you're at the airport now. If you're at a tournament and you go up to there and they got one bathroom, right? Playing at a brewery, it's got one bathroom. And there's a line of 10 people, you can be like, you can be honest with yourself and go, can I hold it and play this game? Or is it not, or do I really need to go? If you really need to go, you might announce to the guys in line, like, hey, can I jump up? Is it okay? Because I'm supposed to be up on court 4. Can I jump ahead and you know, it's just number 1. Right?
Yeah.
You know, I've had a few beers. Can I just get in there and keep the tournament rolling? Most people have the same etiquette as you and understand that you're just trying to keep the tournament running. I'll probably let you jump up there. Those are the kinds of things that you need to be self-aware of at a tournament, and how you handle yourself. How you handle yourself with your friends and family who come. The people who you bring come through you. Your significant other and how they act during a tournament, your kids and how they act during a tournament is a direct reflection on the person who brings them. So you need to have a conversation with them. If your wife likes to drink a lot and heckle, you need to walk over to your wife or your husband if you're a female player and be like, hey, that's not cool. I wouldn't want you to do that to me, right? And you need to have that conversation. If your kids are getting antsy and running around and affecting games, particularly games that you might even be playing, you might be on court 5 and they're affecting games on court 10. You might need to call timeout and go deal with your kids, you know, because they're affecting the other people, and you don't need that. You don't need that to be your reputation. You know, most of the people I know who come to tournaments don't affect these rules. Everything we're talking about are the one guy, the one person. 99% of the people that I meet at a tournament are trying to do what they think is reasonably right. You know, it is really just one guy that spoils it when it comes down to it. And I bring that up because there are a lot of people who bring their kids and who are quick to, you know, remind their kids to calm down or go outside or not run through a court. And we don't want people not to show up because they have certain things going on or can't find a sitter or it's expensive. But you need to make sure that your kids are playing by the rules if they're playing, are not affecting other people if they're not playing. It's fair to ask that of people who bring other people to a tournament.
So that's all the comments, questions I had come in. I'm not sure if you had anything else. I know you had said you would talk to some people at your tournaments on the weekend here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered most everything. There are a couple of situations I think that we didn't cover in terms of play. Especially at smaller venues, we talk about the lanes and lane usage, right? You get into a situation where the boards might not even be a full 6 feet apart. But even at 6 feet, you're talking about a razor thin line between the boxes, and I'm allowed to straddle the edge. So I could get 2-3 feet into the other person's box. Well, come on, be self-aware. If you're going to step out, look over and determine whether they're actually playing. If they're still completing a round next to you and you want to step into your opponent, into an adjacent game to make an outside shot, let the guy finish the round and then make the shot. But let your opponent know, hey, I'm going to step out here and I'm going to let them finish so that I can step out, right? Don't just step out, right? You might bump the guy, right? Who knows? right? Be a nice guy. You know, I like, and I personally like this. I would use the analogy of bowling. Bowling has actual rules in their rule book about lane usage. So there are the 2 lanes in a bowling alley. You got the ball returns, and then you got the lanes that share a space in between them. It's very specific in bowling as to which bowler is allowed to occupy that lane at a time. They don't want both guys going at the same time. That's annoying. The guys are in your peripheral. That stuff, they don't want that going on. So one guy completes his entire frame before the other guy goes, or this guy's already in mid-frame, this guy doesn't get up, right? Those are the things that are expected, the etiquette of bowling. If we've got lanes that are tight, ideally, we want to be throwing bags back and forth. We don't want one game happening at a time because it's going to take too long. But ideally, you want to be throwing in opposite directions of each other. So if for some reason, because of pace of play, you guys end up on the same side together, let the guy finish a round, let him walk down, start. Then you'll end up being opposite of each other. You'll end up, especially if you're talking about a place where you might only have 5 feet between boards or 4 feet between boards, you will be able to have a tournament that continues to run quickly, but you'll also have a tournament where you won't have a situation of 2 players bumping into each other who aren't even in the same game, and I have no idea how to handle that from a rule standpoint. In most cases, I would just say, hey, rethrow the bag. You know, but you know, if that bag gets on the board and moves back, that's when the problem happens, right? If you clip me and I throw it past the board or left, it's real easy to say, hey, wait, just rethrow that one.
Yep.
Nothing's changed. But if I've gone for a hard push and you've bumped me and I clip 3 bags, right? Now you got to move them all back where they were. Does anybody even remember where they were?
Well, exactly.
We're not on camera. Instant replay. That's why you want to make sure that you're not doing those kinds of things, because it just creates problems when you do those kinds of things, right? And we got a lot of those guys, the guys who are not necessarily completely self-aware because they're completely focused on the game. So they just step out and they bump something, right? Or they get into somebody else's game and they don't even realize they're doing it. They're a completely nice guy every other moment of their entire life. They've done it one time. It bugs you. I mean, it happened to me 2 weeks ago on a Monday. Big game I'm playing. I get frustrated because the guy next to me is stepping out. He doesn't even realize he's stepping into my game. I let it get to me. It's my bad, right? I let it get to me. I should have had the wherewithal to stop myself, let him finish his round, and then play my round, right? Yep. I should have seen that. I agree. He probably should have seen it too. I don't know what the situation was. It happened in the middle of the round, so somebody started before somebody else. You know, but that's what I'm saying is okay, right? You have 40 seconds to deliver the first bag of a round if you have first bag, and you have 20 seconds between bags. That's an eternity. We've talked about that. That's a real long time to deliver a bag. That's how much time you have. It may not take the guy that long to throw all 4 of his bags in the game next to you. And it's okay to tell your opponent, hey, I don't like that this guy's on my left, right? His right arm's swinging. It's kind of close to me. He's a stepper. He's using up a lot of space in the box. It's just annoying. I'm going to let them finish. Most of the guys I've ever played against are like, cool, thanks. They're not going to penalize you for slow playing the game because you let the game in front left of you go, right? You know, slow playing is taking 25, 30, 40 seconds between bags, right? It's, you know, bending over and tying your shoe every single bag. You know when a guy's slow playing you. Slow playing, also, I would say this, under the rules, you have 20 seconds. It's almost an entire commercial on TV. I can give you a lot of information in 20 seconds. Yeah. You think guys could, you know, in 20 seconds, you could probably throw all 4 of your bags, you know? And so again, when you're practicing, I would suggest you practice with a rhythm that is closer to the rhythm you're going to play in a game. I would suggest you step off the line, walk to the back of the box, walk up to the front, do something that builds a rhythm that is different than, and is more akin to a pace of a game, right? Because there are guys and gals who just take a long time to shoot. But most of those players are throwing within about 10 seconds. they're still throwing within about half the time they need in order to throw. I watched a dude, Tyler Parent, played an incredible game in our regional on Saturday night. Him and Don Gritton played 2 games that was well over an hour. The first game, well over 40 something minutes. Tyler was down 14-3. He took every bit of 15 seconds to deliver each bag with purpose. And he was able to grind out a win against an amazing shooter who doesn't miss much. And it wasn't affecting Don. Don wasn't worried about it. Don will tell you that he should have won that game. He missed a couple too many shots. Tyler used every bit of time that was in his arsenal to do it. He wasn't slow playing Don so much as making sure he threw every individual bag the way he wanted to throw it. It is one bag at a time the whole game. And he ultimately prevailed in that. And that was probably because of the way he paced himself. But he wasn't trying to upset Don. He was pacing himself, right? If you're out there trying to slow play a dude because you don't have it, that's not necessarily what you want to do either.
Yeah, no.
But if you want to call timeout because you don't have it, take your timeout and hopefully, get a momentum switch. That's completely legal. I watched a guy do it. I was going to tell a guy, a couple of my local friends was watching a comp tournament on Sunday, and one of my friends was not throwing well on the other side. And he was having tons of opportunities, but he's getting 1 point instead of 4, right? And on the close end that I was on, my other friend was in a battle with the guy he was standing next to. It was washes and twos going back and forth. And I'm like, this game is going to be won on the other side, not here. And I was just about to tell Derek between rounds, like, call a timeout, man. Brian needs help. And Brian called the timeout himself. And afterwards I spoke with him, and Brian was like, yeah, I didn't have it. I didn't have it. I needed to reset. They were able to grind out that win, and Brian was able to kind of find it after that. But he was able to recognize that, like, he needed a moment. The game was getting away from him. He needed a moment to reset, needed a moment to throw, and to kind of get himself mentally where he needed to be. And he did that. I told him a story. I had a conversation with some guys from the ACL. You can do whatever you want in your timeout. If your timeout's 90 seconds or whatever, you can do whatever you want. I've called a timeout and ran to the bathroom. Luckily it was close by, so it was probably right around 90 seconds. I've called a timeout to reset, things like that. I called a timeout. Rosie Streaker will probably remember it, and Brianna Trujillo will probably remember. Timeouts I called where I literally sat down in a chair and drank some Powerade and ate a cookie because you're in a battle. When you're playing Rosie Streaker, you're playing Brianna, they throw a lot of bags in the hole. You're in for a long game. And if you need your 90 seconds to simply find your second wind, it's legal. It sucks. You don't like it because you're in rhythm, but it's legal for me to do it. I've iced a kicker. Those are things that are legal. You got to learn how to deal with it. In both of those games, those women won. Congrats to them both. They both won. I did not have enough to keep up at the end in either of those games. I tried everything, and they got the win. I didn't do anything dirty. And I told them, like, they asked me I think one of them said, like, what are you doing? And I go, I'm just trying to reset.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a cross-eyed look. I was honest with what I was doing. I was within the rules of what I was doing. It was big games. Probably not going to do that on a Monday night at a blind draw.
Yeah.
But when you're playing for a spot in the pro division, when you're playing for a game in the winner's bracket of the world championship.
You're gone again there. Your phone call again, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, there you are.
So, you're probably going to see more of those things when the stakes are higher later in a tournament. When it's a big tournament, there's bigger money on it. That's when you're going to see that kind of stuff. Again, players going to have to be aware that might be when that stuff comes up, and they're going to have to learn how to deal with that kind of stuff.
I know that I almost called a timeout for that reason on the weekend here because I was putting them on the floor like no one's business. I almost called a timeout to find the closest person I knew that had a drink to grab their beer off them.
Yeah. I mean, I've signaled to a buddy of mine walking by, like, "Hey, can you get me a drink? I'm struggling here. I need something." Right.
Yeah.
And hopefully they bring it in time, and hopefully the game doesn't end before the drink show.
I was just going to go and grab something. I wasn't going to ask. I was just going to grab.
Yeah. I mean, there are, the rules are the rules, and they're written in the way they are. And I think it's fair to utilize the rules in what you would consider to be a fair way. That may not seem fair to the other person, especially if they're in rhythm and they're kicking your butt. But, again, I would say it depends on circumstances. You'd see it more in a regional. You're going to see it more at a conference level event, state tournament, national. You're not going to see that. And you shouldn't have to see that at a blind draw, right? But if I've got to pee and it's the middle of the darn game and this game is still going on, I'm going to take the break if I can. Along those lines, some of the other things that I saw that came up, the new rules regarding the step overthrow. I know step overthrow, one of the most controversial things in the game, right? Guy, he steps into his throw, doesn't establish on the other side, releases the bag before establishing his position beyond the line. It bugs people. The new rule, that rule in the ACL, that is a legal throw. You can follow through. You can initiate a step and throw as you're stepping. The rule is very clear. You can't jump and throw, right? I do see some young people, particularly very young kids, who technically jump while they throw. So they're technically legal, even if they jump in the box and land in the box. You must have 1 foot in the box, one part of 1 foot in the box when you release the bag. So you technically can't jump and throw. I'm probably not going to call it against a 5-year-old who is doing it simply to throw it 27 feet.
Yep.
But, the step overthrow bugs people because, guys step out into the lane. They may linger out there a little bit longer. But again, they have time. That bag has to come to rest. If you're throwing that quickly behind a guy that he doesn't have the ability to come back into the box, you should probably be asking something more about yourself than them, right? Most of the guys with a step overthrow get back into the box reasonably quick. Again, a couple seconds, right? Maybe not even a couple full seconds. There are some guys who utilize a very short step overthrow. You see it quite a bit, especially with a push. You see it even more when the guys throw a push shot. They might step over the line by 6 inches to a foot, and they're very quick to step back after they've completed that throw. You're going to see it. The guys who linger out there. I've heard guys go, well, could I quick shoot and throw a bag at them? You really want to be that guy?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a gentleman's game. This isn't Peyton Manning getting a free 5 yards. I may have used that earlier in our off camera, or I may have used it earlier in this own conversation. That's not cornhole. Cornhole isn't football. It isn't NASCAR. It's not cheating and trying. It is a gentleman's game. Let the person throw, then you throw, right? That is largely how this game is supposed to be played. Continue to do that, right? If that guy's out there hanging out, putting his arms up after he misses it, he's got a step overthrow, and he's like, what the heck? And he's 4 feet past the line. Let him know it's not cool.
Yeah.
I would suggest, if you're lucky enough to have a buddy who's watching you play, if that's an issue, you can signal to your buddy to go grab the director to come over, right? Because one of the things that's tough on our sport is how to penalize somebody. Most of these rules don't have a clear penalty to them. They're simply, you're not supposed to do it, right? And a lot of this stuff's at the discretion of a director to come over. So, in the case of a step overthrow and you don't like what they're doing, there's no 2-point penalty or 4-point penalty that you can enforce immediately at that moment. Mostly what you're doing is warning the guy, getting a director who then warns the guy, who then finally either makes an adjustment to their behavior or is penalized at the director's discretion. That's difficult. You don't want to upset your own mental game, your own rhythm, in order to deal with that person. And that's where a lot of this etiquette comes in, because you wish people would just be good people, just be reasonable and not do those things. I think as the sport grows and the professionalism becomes more and more important in our sport, I think you're going to see less and less and less of that kind of stuff from pros, and you're going to see less of it from their advanced counterparts who want to be pros, because people are going to start acting the way that they want to be perceived. And if you want to be perceived as a professional cornhole player or a high-end advanced player, then you're going to carry yourself that way. And that's not Bush League stuff, you know? So I think that's, you know, one of those things that you're going to see as it relates to the step overthrow. Sure, the step overthrow could get, you know, at some point in some off season, we could be told it's not cool and it's gone. You know, I think, you know, one of the things I would hope the ACL would give players time. You look at a sport like golf, when they took away the anchoring of the putter under the chin or in the chest, they were given, I think, at least 18 months to make adjustments. Some people made adjustments earlier, some people made adjustments later, but they were given a very specific amount of time to make adjustments to their swings. And I would hope the ACL would do the same for us. You know, not try to, I mean, with the season ending in August and drifting with the pro shootouts into September and then turning around in October 1st, starting a new season, that's not a long off season to make significant changes to a player swing, player's throw. So I would hope that any rule like that, the pros would have a reasonable notification of that rule change. And that would be etiquette as well, coming back in from the league. I do think that they would. My friends in the brass there and the people there, I think they're reasonable people, and I think they would give us a good heads up, particularly those people who do it. You know, if they're going to eliminate a rule that kind of 5 or 6 guys, especially if they're well-known guys, you know, they're going to make a rule change that affects those guys, they're probably going to catch wind of it early enough to make some significant changes. The last one that came up was headphones. Headphones are awesome. I particularly will wear headphones in singles. I don't generally wear headphones in doubles. I don't wear headphones in doubles because I believe that doubles has a certain amount of communication that's necessary for a team to be good, even in a blind draw situation. So if you show up at a local blind draw with headphones, I would just simply say, come on, man.
Yeah.
It's a local blind draw. That's not what this is. You show up at blind draw with headphones on, you're probably taking it a little bit too serious. You show up at a regional with headphones, that's, I think, where they belong. I think they belong in that level up. You know, unless you're playing in a blind draw situation with like 10 of your buddies and you're all evenly matched and it's like everyone knows it's a competitive blind draw, like this is what we came to do, go for it. But if it's Monday night with your buddies, Wednesday night with your friends, it's still a social game. If you're playing doubles, you need to talk to people. When I play with my own doubles partner, sometimes they wear headphones. My doubles partner last year wears headphones. I knew that. Lots of hand signals. You want to go in, you know, in, right? Backside, right? He would pop that thing out if he needed to talk, right? I had a lot of signals for him, like airmail, go for it. Airmail, right? Airmail deep. I would be like backside, right? I'd show him, like try to make a picture of it, right? How much bags hanging over the whole half, right? I had a lot of hand signals because my partner liked to wear headphones. I'm cool with that, right? But that's your regular partner. That's a guy who knows what you're trying to communicate, and you develop that rapport with each other. I have a guy I play with who shoots a ton of airmails. Johnny Rocket, airmail specialist. We got to a point where all I had to do was like look up. Airmail, 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 right? You know, it was more waving him off than anything, right? Like, you know, that I would want him to slow down or a little hold up. Like, I want to tell you what's going on there because you might need to see it. If Johnny's not hitting his airmails, you're not getting the best out of Johnny. So you might as well just call for an airmail. But, you know, again, you build a rapport with these guys, you can get away with wearing headphones. If you're a partner and you've never played cornhole together, it's probably best you don't wear headphones because you're probably going to need to communicate with them to some degree. And like I said, if you're playing at a blind draw and you're putting headphones in, are you so good that you need to wear headphones? Are you so asocial that you need to wear headphones? Like, what's going on there? You should probably be asking yourself that question. That why am I wearing headphones at this? You know, and I've had situations with players at those in those events where they have headphones on and they don't recognize my hand signals, and I'm trying to communicate to them, and I'm like, it's got to be in, and I'm literally pointing in, right? And then they'll throw a bag on, and then we lose, and they're like, well, you told me to put it on, and I go, take your headphones out. I'm literally yelling in. I'm putting my hand in the hole. I'm pointing into the hole, right? I'm not going, put it on, right? Put it in, right? And if you're my partner and you got a headphones in and you don't get that signal, I don't know what else to do. I'm disappointed. You know, and you'd be disappointed in me as your blind draw partner if I didn't hear you.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the last thing ever comes up is you know, etiquette in a blind draw, right? You know, that thing went around. It was I think somebody wrote, might have been some guys from the Big Ass podcast, that you should embrace your blind draw partner as if you've drawn Jamie Graham for the night. Shout out to Jamie Graham. Clearly everybody wants Jamie as their blind draw partner. I know I'd be super stoked. As one of the players who's, you know, who could arguably be considered a better player to draw in a blind draw, there is etiquette on both guys' behalf. You know, I'm going to draw whoever I get at a blind draw. I need to treat them with respect. Yes. Like I've drawn the best player possible. At the same time, I think my blind draw partner probably should be relatively reasonable as it relates to us. You know, did you draw a pro, right? You clearly know that you were probably not their first choice. Are you going to go out and shoot your best? Right. You know, I've had guys come up to me and go, you know, I'm so excited. I've never got to be your partner before. We're totally going to win tonight. Well, probably not. Right. You know, let's be honest. Let's look around. Somebody, you know, the second best player here got the walker. Right. So the second best player here who's going to average a 9 is going to be throwing 9s on both sides. Right. You throw 6s, I throw 9s. That's probably not going to be a recipe to win. So let's just be honest with ourselves for that night, right? Let's go out and shoot, right? I'm going to shoot the best I can, right? You know, if I'm the second best player, if I get Jamie as a partner, I'm going to be like, Jamie, I'm going to give you everything I got today. Let's have fun. I'm going to give you everything I got. Hopefully it's enough to inspire the best out of him, right? Hopefully we get on a fun run. I think that's the way that you want to approach a blind draw if you are the B player in the two, right? And it's okay. If you're a C or a D player, you know what's really okay? If you got an A player for the night, you know he's going to be a little salty because probably ain't going to win. It's okay to buy him a beer.
I've been there.
It's social. It's okay to be like, hey, I know it's going to be I know we're in for a longer evening tonight, right? Here's a beer. I'm totally open to any coaching. Totally open to being, you know, to trying to soak it up. I'm gonna give you my best, right? You know, that's the way to approach the blind draw. I think more than anything isn't necessarily to embrace somebody as if you've got somebody in particular. It's bring your best. If you give your best out on the board, whoever you're playing with will notice that they got a good game out of you, and will hopefully continue to get good games out of you, and we'll get on a run, and maybe it'll be a magical night, and we'll win. You know, but you'll inspire that person who is the A player to give them your best as well, right? It's tough in a blind draw, right? You get a situation where, you know, I might be a racer. I just throw bags in the hole. Well, if I'm up against another racer who's matching me bag for bag, I might be scoring literally 2 points a round. And in doubles, that would mean I need 10 rounds to win, 11 rounds, 10 rounds to win. It'd be 22. I'd be 20. I need 11 rounds to win. That means I need my partner on the other end to not give up 21 points in 10 rounds in between. It's going to take us 21 rounds to win this game if I only score 2 at a time and if I score every single time. Right? That happens a lot. There are some really good guys out there who just throw all their bags in the hole. To expect that guy to then adjust to a block airmail game, he may not have it. Block airmail push, like that may not be what that player does. pushing them, if you're giving up 4s and 6s on your end, pushing them to adjust into that style of play, they may do it because they're competitive and they want to win. And then you turn around and go, well, you gave up a 6. Yeah, we were down 15-3, and I did give up a 6. Yes, and we lost. I was trying to win, though.
Yeah.
I think it's important for players in a blind draw and from an etiquette standpoint to begin to understand the game and begin to have conversations with their partner, build good relationships and rapport with them to understand why is it that the A player got a little nuts and went for something and it looked like crap because they might not have been able to pull it off. That I think is fair to have that conversation. And I think the B player needs to understand that, oh, that's what was going on. I was giving up so many points. You had to adjust your strategy to try to win that game. Yeah. And that's not something you're as good at. It's okay to say that,
Well, and I think that's where the B player is. I think there's almost more pressure on that A player who's the partner because they have to work that much harder because they know that other B player may not be throwing that as best. Because I know I'm always on the B player side of it, but still, yeah, it's that whole thing. Like don't be going into it like you maybe said of like, oh, we're gonna win because I have Eric as a partner. He's the best guy here. We've got this one for sure. You probably don't.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you also just have to be honest, I think, is more than anything, right? Look around. You know who the second and third best players are. Are they partnered together? Right? If you're the 12th best player and you got the best player and you're up against the second and the third, as the B player, how often you've been competitive with the second and third best player in the room, right?
Yeah.
If you can hang well enough to give the number one player a chance to win that game. It's fair. I would say also when you get to blind draws, I think there's some other etiquette. I personally wouldn't recommend entering a blind draw. If you're going to play comp that weekend, if you're at a regional and you're going to play competitive singles and you're going to play competitive doubles, don't enter the advanced blind draw.
Yeah.
Right. Your advanced partner is going to be really bummed out that he's got a comp player. Right. And he's going to know you're a comp player because you're not willing to play him in singles. If you're not willing to play against somebody, then there's probably a good chance that that's not the right way to start out a blind draw partnership. So play in the division that you belong. If you're playing advanced all season, right, you're an advanced player and you're on the bottom end of advanced, the top end advanced guy knows if he gets you that at least that person can go back and say, well, I get to play them in singles and get some wins out of them. Right? I get to get some wins off of them in doubles because they're committed to playing in this division. So I'm committed to playing in this division. That's why, right? I think if we get some more etiquette in the blind draw situation along both of those lines, I think you're going to see a lot more of the top end players willing to play in the blind draws. I have been to opens. I have been to conference tournaments where the blind draw happens, say, on a Friday night, and guys don't make it a priority to come and play. They make it. In fact, they may just choose to avoid it. They're there and they won't play. I've seen it from good players who were like, it's way too frustrating. I don't want to do it. Right. If I can't get a reasonably decent player where I feel like I can compete, it's frustrating and I'd rather not do it. If you are the B players and you are the guys in the room that want those players to play, you got to definitely think about how you make it fun for them to play and make it worth their while to play and why they want to come and play. I hear Virginia is going to have a pro-am. They're going to do a pro plus amateur blind draw. I think that's amazing. I think that's awesome. I would love to see more of those at opens. You see that kind of stuff in pro golf. There's always usually a pro-am on Wednesday. I think most of the pros are even potentially required to play in it. The pros don't pay to play in that. They don't pay. They're just partnered up with somebody and they go out and shoot and whatever happens. And they've learned to do that. A lot of charities benefit from that. I'd love to see the ACL maybe make that a charitable tournament in some way at the front end of every open. Most opens, you're probably getting 20 to 50 pros coming into town. That'd be a fun thing to watch. To have players partnered up that way. And I think you'd get more participation too. I think that's the key, right? I've heard the stories of guys who won't play advanced because they say, I don't have a good partner, right? My partner's terrible. I would play advanced if I could play with you. Well, I would say that most of the guys in advanced have earned their partners. They've gone out and shot well and proven it. Most of the great players in advanced are keeping a good eye as to the up and coming players. Everybody's like, hey, you see the new guy over there, you see the kid over there. Who's that girl? They're shooting fire. And then, 2 months later, you see somebody taking a shot playing with them at a regional. They earn that shot. Nobody goes down in the comp division and grabs a guy and says, let's go play, right? Those comp players step up on their own and they go 2-2 and 3-2 and 4-2 and don't win, but shock somebody, win a couple of games. And then somebody's like, let me give that guy a try. And they go and play together and hopefully it's good. And the experience is good, and maybe there's a bag mismatch or something that doesn't work out. But that's how you end up earning a better partner from an etiquette standpoint, from just a reasonable standpoint. Just because you think you're an advanced player and you want to go up, the best player in the tournament isn't necessarily going to return your phone call and be your partner, right? So if you think about those things in combination in a blind draw, when you do get that guy, give him your best. Show him that you got something in the tank. Right? Show them what you can do. Play within yourself. Don't make stupid mistakes. If you're the B player, there's really absolutely zero reason for you to go most airmails unless your partner calls for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to prove you're so good by going for crazy shots and then giving up an 8.
Yeah.
Don't make it hard.
I know for me, crazy shots are just putting it on the board sometimes, but it's still, it's that thing.
I have a buddy.
It's the life of the B player.
I have a buddy who has a measurement thing. He's like, I will bet anyone in the room that they can't put 4 on the board. Right? $20, right? We'll know if you're an advanced player. Here's $20. Put it out in between the boards. Throw 4 on. They can go in the hole too. You can throw 4-pack.
Yeah.
Put 4 bags on, none on the floor. Right? And that was his particular measurement tool. And when you've only got 4 bags and the board is clear and everybody's watching, it becomes much more difficult to put 4 anywhere near the hole.
Yeah. And I still, apologies to Jim Glassclock, but I know that I haven't done what he's done on ESPN. He put that one about 13 feet, I think, last year there, and it was like, oh, I feel your pain.
Listen, everyone's done it.
Yeah.
Everyone's done it. We watched Matt Guy in Vegas last year go through something in a couple of games across multiple tournaments, right? I think it was in doubles and in singles where he made a couple of odd decisions. I think he went for sort of an airmail, maybe a bit of a showboating shot, and then it didn't work out. And then there were a couple of off, and all of a sudden, I think Damon Dennis might have won that game.
Yeah.
Got through him, and then it happened again in doubles. Now he corrected it, and they won the doubles game, if I recall correctly.
I think so, yeah.
That's tough. That's tough. We've all been there. We've all made a mistake, and then it has major consequences. I hate bringing that up, Matt. I hope you don't kill me boards for bringing that up.
I brought it up with him on the show there a couple weeks ago, and he was like, you know what? I went back, went in a little room by myself, a whole bunch of F-bombs thrown off the walls, and I came back and played fine. It's that whole reset.
He did. And, we're talking etiquette, right? So that game in doubles included, I think they were playing Hisner and Henderson.
Yep.
And there was some snappy commentary between both of them going on in that tournament. But if you watch that tournament, you watch those guys play, every time Matt dropped it was while Matt was throwing. He didn't do it while Mr. Hisner was throwing. Mm-hmm. Mr. Hisner didn't say anything while Matt was throwing. They've played together a lot. They are the top end players in this sport for a very long time. They know how to do it. They did it. They put on a show. The trash talk was awesome to watch.
Yeah.
But they did it in a way that I think, getting back to this entire topic, that was within the etiquette of the game. They were reasonably respectful of each other, even though they were going at it, right? Mm-hmm. And trash talk, and they were going at it. There's a way to do it and to not be a jerk. And I think they were right on the line with each
Well,
other.
I think the best part of that story is that they flew on the flight home. They were side by side on the plane going home.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. So it's,
I mean, look, that's the other example of why etiquette becomes so darn important. They were able to, in the heat of an exceptional battle for a lot of money and a championship, right, have a very contentious game that included some trash talk, that they were able to sit next to each other on an airline home, probably share a beer. They play against each other and with each other so much, right? They're Kentucky and Ohio. They play a lot together. It's inevitable that they're going to play together. They must have at least a certain amount of respect for each other and the game that they're playing and the organizers whose tournament they're playing in, not to get in a fight, not to do stupid stuff, right? I don't even know if they like each other or not, and it doesn't matter. They like themselves enough to carry a certain amount of respect into the game, a certain level of etiquette that they will play, and nobody has to worry about, somebody flipping a board and, something happened. And it doesn't matter how many beers deep they are. To walk off that board and go into a room and do their thing, right? And I think that's really important. I mean, we've seen cornhole in many cases. There's some videos out there where it's devolved into a fight. That's not cool.
No.
It's just not, and if you get that loaded, that's what ends up happening. That's disappointing for the tournament organizer who's put in a ton of time to try to get that tournament running. If it's a charity tournament, it's even worse. Don't be that guy. Just don't be that guy.
No, exactly not. I want to thank you for coming on. I think we're going to do part 3. I think because I know we've got more to talk about here, but because we had a list of stuff, and I think maybe we'll have to come back and do part 3 because we've got, like I said, a lot more topics. But I want to thank you.
Talking with you, Doug. I think we have some good conversation. Love talking any topics. Any fans who want to find out something can always write Doug, and we'll talk about it.
Well, exactly. Yeah, we're coming up almost an hour and a half here. So the sponsor show: Octane Cornhole, OctaneCornhole.com, MyEarFund.com, JCCornhole.com. I'm just reading them as they go across here. SierraHome.com. Talk to Darren out west in the Edmonton area for any of your home inspection needs. And as you see, CSCCornhole.com. Any of your American bags, if you're up in Canada buying them, and Matt has said, make sure people know if he's only sells to the Canadian players up here. He's had some Americans who are trying to get the new fire bags that are sold out in the States, that he has them up here, but he just doesn't ship to the US. So if you're in Canada and you want those new fire bags that are sold out in the US, check out csccornhole.com. And I'm going to say there's going to be another special part 3 coming up here very soon with Eric right back on here talking some more cornhole, because it's just fun conversations.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Okay. And as always, watch out for those players throwing gas, because, well, it wasn't me this weekend, but they'll probably kick your ass.